Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again with a fairly newish build, I suppose. It's nothing too special. It's basically Molten Strike with HoWA, so Hand of Wisdom and Action, the breach item for int stacking. A claw gives you a bit of damage to lightning per 10 int, and then I wanted to make it as a life-based character for int stack, which can only really truly be done with Mask of the Stitched Demon, which gives you a bit of extra life per int that you have, and thus enables like a fairly decent way of stacking life in this sort of a build. And then I had to try and come up with an ascendancy to play with it, and they all seemed a bit whatever, especially given the passive tree for needing int stack, and I don't know, somehow landed on champion. My first champion of the league, my first duelist of the league, and time to see what all this defensive stuff is all about. And yeah, it's pretty good. You can get some defenses as a champion. So just being a champion, basically taking the fortify route, because there isn't much better I can do. So the fortify route and the aura thing and the adrenaline thing, and yeah, wearing Grace, Determination, Defiance banner, got like 30,000 armor and evasion, and basically makes it so that anything that's hitting you for physical damage does fucking no damage. And it is pretty silly. It is a bit, you know, extreme on the defensive side of things, but that is possibly why champion is one of the most popular ascendancies right now. It's also my first chance to really test the adrenaline side of things with Divine Blessing, so you may notice that my health dips from time to time, and that is to enable adrenaline from your ascendancy. And we do Divine Blessing with Wrath, so occasionally it basically turns your Wrath into a aura buff instead of a pure aura up all the time, and it's really hard to get it to below half your life, because ideally you press one button and it takes you down to half your life, and then that procs the adrenaline from the ascendancy. So I've also got Righteous Fire to help me out with that as well. That's why Righteous Fire is in the build, and as soon as you get down to low life, half life, RF turns itself off because you become immune to burning damage, immune to ignite, all that sort of shit. And then we have adrenaline up for 20 seconds. But the ideal situation is to get that Divine Blessing to just pop off in one button press, though in this case it wasn't really doable. So that's basically the idea around champion, and I wanted to just play with Molten, not really Molten Strike, I wanted to play with the Mask of the Stitched Demon and do a life-based int stack somehow, and I took that Mask of the Stitched Demon and ran a bunch of Uber Labs, and the only real build viable enchant that popped up was the Molten Strike enchant, and that's where we're at with this character. Otherwise, I actually really wanted to do a Wander, but you do kind of want Helm enchants for Wanders, and there's no Mask of the Stitched Demon with Helm enchants for Wanders, and none of those enchants popped up while I was farming. Either way, Molten Strike's pretty good. I have been meaning to make another Molten Strike since my last one, last league, just as a more thicker version, because I went full Berserker, full DPS, and it was really good, but it was a bit low on defense, and it was just overkill on damage. And I actually really enjoyed the play style of Molten Strike. With all the additional strike bullshit, you can see that you can hit like the entire screen essentially, just by getting a couple of additional strikes and some good strike range. So it does make for a pretty fun play style, and while everyone's playing Lightning Strike, some of us can still play Molten Strike, and this time around just build a lot thicker. But of course that does mean my damage suffered a bit, and there's not going to be anything special on damage on this character. Maybe like 5 million ish, and maybe like up to 10 million, something like that, but it will be kind of high roll damage, and I don't think this is going to be one of them really nice big DPS characters, but you definitely can build some champions with insane DPS and insane defense, and I've seen a few examples of that. Seen a few examples of that as well. So champion does seem pretty busted, but that's just the strength of the defensive auras and all that at the moment. What we're going to do is just run the character through to the end and see what it can do, but I don't think it's going to do too much on the single target. It's just more a nice introduction to champion for myself. But yeah, let me show you how I built the character so far. So here is the current character, level 89, all pain, no champ, pain champ, etc. And about 5,500 life, so basically the character does become so thick that you don't really need to stack much life, and it's pretty common that a lot of these champions that build into your, thick auras and all that have like 4 or 5k life, because any more is just overkill. And the less life you have, the more impactful the recovery that you do have becomes, as long as you take a long time to die. So that plus Molten Shell ends up being really quite overpowered. I don't currently have Molten Shell in the build because don't really need it, but yeah, this is supposed to be an int stacking passive tree, and yeah, it's not much of one, is it? But I'm doing the best I can given the position we're in. It does end up being probably too much of a hipster build, but either way, some of the core concepts here might still be worth looking at. Hand of Wisdom in action, so currently just 1 to 10 lightning damage per 10 int, and I've got 1,243 int at the moment. So my previous character that was deck stack hit about 1,800, and that's usually where you want to be, anywhere from like 15 to 1,800 of a stat that you're stacking, because that is probably a realistic amount for most stats that is a bit of a min-max. 1,200 is a bit low, but it is what it is with where I'm at and how I'm trying to make it work. So it might just be a bit too hipster. In any case, it's giving quite a substantial amount of lightning damage. So as you can see, 1,000 to 12,000 lightning. And then my fire is like 700 to 1,000, just because Molten Strike itself has a bunch of fire built in to begin with, but we are only really caring about the lightning damage on this portion. And then it's also got really nice life gain on hit, which you usually don't use in these types of builds because you are int stack and then you are CI, so like full energy shield base. So that's traditionally how these things are played, but I wanted to make use of this hat for a while, and I have once before, like 3 years ago or some shit, and it was kind of a mediocre use, and this probably isn't any different. But we'll have to wait and see for the last few endgame bosses. Just the DPS I don't think is too impressive, but it's pretty fucking hard to die on the character otherwise. So maybe it doesn't need to be impressive because you can just outlast whatever you need to. So the idea is that it just gives 1 max life per 2 int, which gives a lot of extra max life based off of our 1,200 int. And I've got hardly any percent life on the tree, like 100% or something, and then a few pieces of life on some other pieces of gear. And what you end up with is 5.5k life. So it's pretty strong to get your life up at the int stacking time. And then it means you also can't have energy shield, but you get a bit of extra regen for your energy shield. So you can see I get 2% regen from it. One interesting thing that it does enable is the use of solipsism if you get over there, to just reduce duration of elements on you, which should basically be up to 100% if you're stacking some int. The problem is that reduced duration of elements doesn't make you immune to like shocked ground and that sort of thing, whereas becoming ailment immune does do that. So instead I've gone for ailment immune on this build. So the rest of the gear is basically int stack, grabbed an int stack amulet and chaos spam till something good happened, and then fixed up the prefixes. Just bought this thing to fill out some res and some int. Grabbed a suppress shield and then used some int essences until I got a life roll so I could then put avoid ailments on it. Reusing some boots, bit of avoid ailments, bit of int, bit of chaos res. Just grabbed this freaking glove for good suffixes and then fixed up prefixes myself. And then importantly, you're trying to get strike skills target 2 additional nearby enemies, which is potentially a costly venture, but that is a real nice addition to this league for strike skills and lots of melee stuff. So it is usually 1 additional strike skill target if you're like at the low end of Searing Exarch, but you then have to win an Orb of Conflict 50-50 once or twice, some shit like that. And it just depends on where your starting point is, but you need to get to Exquisite, and that gives you 2 additional strikes, and then all of a sudden you really don't need additional strikes from anywhere else, from, Ancestral Call or the passive tree, and it is pretty convenient to get. Then grabbed a % int belt and yeah, int essences till something happened, and then this is just a chest I actually just bought straight up. That's basically as best as I could do, because you can't get int rolls on pure strength or strength dex bases, so kind of made a concession there and just did the best I could. But I can and have been trying to make an int essence chest with, just spamming it with int essences until you get %int and hopefully another good suffix, and then fix up prefixes yourself with suffix cannot change and prefix rerolls, that sort of thing. And then this beauty, and this is basically the entire reason I went into the build with Mask of the Stitch Demon. Finally committed to the idea because I was doing some rogging, and Rog decided to give a pretty good ring. It's got int stack, it's got a lot of lightning damage to attacks, a lot of early damage, and then accuracy, life, all res. It's just a fucking amazing ring. So Rog decided to give that, and during my Rog session, like I did, I don't know, maybe 100 Rog rerolls or some shit. Having to get a few rings, so I got that one as well, which really good stack for stats, so maybe pretty good for Omni, otherwise just good in general as well. And then also got this one, which just started out with massive res, and then luckily got a couple other rolls. So Rog, yeah, he still shows up and he still definitely provides. I love Rog more than anything for the expeditions. So that's basically the build. Molten Strike here, I am currently using Divergent for an extra bit of 2 melee strike range, then using Behead, though I was using Divergent Ancestral Call for most of the time. I only just replaced it recently. So now we have Behead, and we don't need the extra strikes, but we got the extra strike range from this, and then also more damage against low life, but it's mostly for the strike range and a bit of extra damage on that low life. Nightblade, of course, if you're using claws or daggers. Awakened Lightning Pen, so that gives you exposure as well. Previously had exposure here, but once I picked this up, I got rid of the exposure and put on suppress. Then multi-strike with extra attack speed and LE damage with attacks. The auras themselves, just got your classic grace, determination, and then Defiance Banner, and you can attach Defiance Banner to Arrogance for 23% increased aura effect, since it is free from the champion inspirational ascendancy. So this just gives it a bit of extra armor and defense %. That's pretty nice. But then I've also got Precision attached and Righteous Fire. I don't really need that much life, so Precision attached there just to save mana seems to make sense, and it helps me proc that Divine Blessing. So you got Wrath attached to Divine Blessing, increased duration, and life tap. I've attached it to increased duration because it just makes it a bit longer to line up with Adrenaline a bit more, and also to increase the cost so that it actually tanks me a bit more. So you can just press it twice, but that is a bit slower during gameplay than pressing it once and then Righteous Firing yourself down to 50%, but the whole point of that is for Adrenaline to pop. So gain Adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life if you do not have Adrenaline. So currently we do. If we go down to 20% life, 50% life, it won't proc. It does need to have the non-adrenaline and then go down to 50% life like so, boosts you back up 25% life and gives you adrenaline. So that's the whole point of that, and it means that you can get quite a lot of attack speed filled out through champion. 20 attack speed there, 25 attack speed there, and then it's just a bit of an all-round ascendancy after that. You've also got Fortify, a bit of extra armor evasion. A lot of people do build into even more armor and evasion on this type of thing, and then use a Perseverance belt, which gives you lots of attack damage per armor evasion. But I didn't currently go for that. I'll still maybe look into it and do some other skills and all that, but so far this is just what I'm doing and trying out, and it's been working out well enough. And it's actually kind of just dumb how unbelievably thick you become with this sort of stuff. Like I said, I haven't even built that thick. This is just the regular champion setup, and this much armor, this much evasion. I'm capped on spell suppress. Still need to finish capping this res. Capped on spell suppress, bit of chaos res, ailment immune, and some good recovery, life gain on hit. You become pretty much immortal to everything out there. And if you grab a molten shell, you like double, triple your EHP. So it gets pretty silly. And you can understand why people are playing their champions as aura stackers and omnis and all kinds of dumb bullshit with some really overpowered builds. So that's it for this one for now. Hopefully I got some sort of good news for endgame next time, though not sure I will. Just, I can tank stuff. We'll have to wait and see. Micros are just nothing special. Harmony helmet, siren body, Annihilated Wings, and then of course a Divergent character effect. As always, been loving that one. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.